Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Before I start this very important video, I'd like to explain that I'm not feeling suicidal. Again, I am not feeling suicidal. So let's talk about Ezekiel chapter 1. In Ezekiel chapter 21, it says, I have stationed the sword for the slaughter at all their gates. Look, it is forged to strike like lightning. It is grasped for slaughter. Now, some of these people don't want me to explain these things, right? But what does it mean for the sword to strike like lightning? Well, there's a reason why God's striking the enemies, of God, right? His enemies, is being compared to a sword that's been forged to strike like lightning. So when I struck at world record speed like lightning, right, the pinnacle of it, with focused moral intensity, with righteousness, in the divine order, God forged me. He set me apart to do that. And that's part of the patterns of nature. The message, there's two main things that come to mind when I bring this up. One is me striking as God's son, the top martial artist ever, the Son of God. Right? Martial is marital scrambled, and I, Christ, and the bridegroom. Righteousness and faithfulness are my belt and sash. Isaiah 11:5, I believe it is. Also, it's the message, right, that these patterns are communicating something to you. The only reason human beings are alive right now is because they studied the patterns of nature. And the patterns are also telling you to not reproduce, because righteousness and justice have taught human beings lessons for many, many, many years, thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. And then the early humanoids before them, if you go by science, right? Homo erectus, what have you. So this morning, as I was considering how the deadline is tomorrow, and if I'm still alive tomorrow, which to some degree I hope I'm not, okay, that there's got to be extreme punishments in the spiritual realm for everyone outside the divine order. As I've said many times, I could have died a long time ago. I could have died when I was young. I could have died as a teenager when I got in a car accident. I could have died many times. And I could have died in many ways. People shouldn't be taken for granted that I'm here. They should scramble immediately to rally and obey God through me. So let's look at the pros and the cons of me still being alive tomorrow. And again, I'm not feeling suicidal, but this is very important. I want you people to understand the situation. If I did, kill my flesh, I would be right to do so. And again, I'm not feeling suicidal, but you need to understand the implications of that. And I know that this video will probably be suppressed. I've done something to hopefully get this video a few more views, but it's safe to say, based on the pattern I've seen, that at least, for the time being, that it's going to be suppressed. But this is about moral repetition. So the pros are all within the boundaries of, serving God, of course, having the most directly and masterful ending is a key part of the pros, right? The ending will be the most directly masterful ending if my flesh dies before tomorrow. The cons have to do with what would happen if it doesn't, right? And you must consider that I'll still have the armor of God, and that is very important, especially when we're talking about the homosexual harassment that is aimed at me. These people are heterophobic, and famous feminist professor from Australia or something has been quoted as saying that the New World Order intends to destroy heterosexual desire. When you see it on the right wing and the left wing, you see both parties, they don't express heterosexual appeal very well. They simply don't. Nerd appeal isn't the same. LGBT appeal isn't the same. MAGA appeal, you know, the people in suits these days who are allowed to look more, maybe heterosexual than others in a sense, because we know it's coming from them, like first and foremost, with an emphasis on the most quote-unquote appealing of them, they look like clowns who don't have a drop of masculinity in them. And to be a male and to have heterosexual appeal, you have to have masculinity, or you're just some kind of worm appealing to some kind of little girl that never grew up. So heterosexual appeal for adults requires having grown up and having communicated, having grown up, universally speaking, not in the mere white man's construct. Okay. So let's shoot through these 13 points that I put here. The first one, I'll have gone straight up while addressing that they mock God. Right? That's a huge part of this thing. Huge part of it is that they're using the fact that I'm here to mock God by what they're doing to my clothes, to keep me from wearing certain clothes, keep me looking scruffy, what have you. The dirt on the car. They've even changed the way my face looks from years of zapping my brain and my flesh. Keep in mind, I have 23 witnesses on record to the SOP against me, and I'm sure countless Americans, if they were being honest, would say that they've noticed how people have changed in the last 10 years or so. But this is something that people beat around the bush about, and if law enforcement was doing an investigation of this, they probably would pretend that I'm crazy, even though they know damn well that people have changed drastically, and some other people have spoken on YouTube as well. So the cons of that, the other side of that coin is all chances for people to repent will have ended. Okay. And the mocking also hurts them. So as they try to mock God, right, God will not be mocked. You reap what you sow. And of course, in their story, they mock Christ and John the Baptist. And, the logical assumption is that should not be that much of my concern, but I go the distance to serve God, so it is my concern. So one way or another, it's concerning that they mock God. But should I be concerned about it to the point where I'd prefer that my flesh was dead and that my soul is at God's right hand and not associated with any living flesh? That's a different story. So point number 2, there'll be no more homosexual harassment games from them. The other side of the coin is like nothing, right? I mean, Point number 3, they get taught a particular type of lesson. The other side of the coin is they get taught less potent lessons, but more of them over time, right, in a sense. So if I was still alive, they're still going to be taught lessons by me being here, how I respond to this situation, the bumper stickers, what have you. Point number 4, the strike silences all critics immediately. Okay, see the parable of the abrupt ending. You maybe have to scroll down maybe 10, 20 videos. It's there somewhere, maybe 30 videos, maybe 40. Somewhere there's the parable of the abrupt ending where I make it clear that, that they lose and their offspring should want to slap them to death for what they've done here to themselves, their families. It goes back to Cronus worship. They believe that they should sacrifice their souls and their offspring's souls to be some kind of white supremacist, Jewish supremacist, nerd supremacist, LGBT supremacist, what have you. Freemasons, frat guys, weirdos like that. Okay. And keep in mind, God doesn't produce a massive fist in the air and smack them. The way he strikes them is spiritual, right? Going back to Ezekiel 21. I have stationed the sword for the slaughter at all their gates. Look, it is forged to strike like lightning. It is grasped for slaughter. The strike is spiritual. It's in the spirit realm first and foremost. Okay, so there's no con for that point. Point number 5. The rebels, I also call them earth huggers, earth clingers, show no signs of seriously considering rallying. So, why should I stick around? The other side is things can be tricky. My brain is partially hacked. Point number 6. The deadline is here, and I made a lot of arguments in that regard. The other side of that is that there's the end of the 7, right? 43, right? 4 plus 3 equals 7. That's my age. Okay. The deadline has to do with when I turn 44. And that's the end of the 7. Okay. Now, the other side of it is I may relent on this, right? You see in the Bible, in Leviticus or Deuteronomy, that God can change his mind relative to the situation when things like this are pronounced. For example, if, keep in mind that after my flesh dies, no matter what anyone says or does, that's it. They'll be cut off. There'll be no way for them to be righteous. They'll be by default following false idols, whether it's themselves or other people, with no way to follow God, which means that they're cut off from all possibilities to go to heaven. Right? Wisdom walks in the way of righteousness along the path of justice. If you're walking the way of idolatry and you're cut off from God because of, the planet screening out the righteous, that's it. Point number 7, I save my family money. So again, I consider the rich scum and the poor, something else. My family owes me a lot of money, and I don't want to get into details too much, but one way or another, if I'm gone, I save my family money. There is nothing on the other side of the coin there. In terms of when I say the other side of the coin in this context, I mean what are the cons here. Point number 8, financial harassment ends. The other side of that is people do see the pinnacle of manning up in poverty, right? When people see me, they know I'm manning up. When they see gangsters and corporate guys and regular guys and gay guys and this and that and the other thing, right? Homeless people, whatever else, they don't see someone manning up. When they see my bumper stickers, they know immediately I'm manning up. When people see me and they're targeting me, they know immediately, hey, that guy's manning up. And they know when they're gang stalking me, they're not manning up. They're going out like a punk, right? Serving pedos and their allies. The Epstein thing made that crystal clear. But millions and millions of us knew that beyond a reasonable doubt way before the Epstein thing came out. Okay. I'm sure we can all agree on that. Point number 9. The greatest experience in life would be the moment that my flesh dies, especially if it dies in a very romantic way. The other side of that is I miss seeing things play out while I'm in the flesh. Point number 10, health, clothes, and brain issues will be solved. The other side of that is I miss potential compensation, right? Because the health issues could, and so on and so forth, the brain issues could bring me lots of money if this thing ever gets exposed, which I don't think it will, but there's a good chance it will. It depends on if people rally to me, I'd imagine. Point number 11, dating issues are solved the best way. The other side of that is I miss a potential correction of female rebels, right? What would be more satisfying, so to speak, than being on TV or something and saying, hey, these females did me wrong because of this, this, and this. I'm in the most populated state, one of the most populated countries in the world. In the information age, there's no excuse for that. And having them all feeling, regret and knowing that they owe me and so on and so forth, right? That potential correction is priceless. Think about it. Also, I miss out on a mediocre helper. I'm a firm believer that there's no worthwhile relationship to be had on this planet ever again. However, if somebody scrambles with all their heart to be the suitable helper of Christ, maybe I would be mistaken on that point. So that's like the one place I could be mistaken here. Point number 12. My stance on selling out, okay. The people who made false investment promises in my parents' company would be made clear, because these people think that they're fooling me. They're like, he's still waiting for that money to come for his parents' company. Will be, boom, immediately, that abrupt ending. Hey, I didn't believe that the whole time. It would be made clear in a very potent way. There really are no cons for that. The last point is, point number 13. If the car problems, I have tire problems, okay, other problems with the car, need an oil change, what have you. Okay, because of the situation, I'm putting these things off and going after, solving problems as needed, as absolute must. For example, I'd be saving a lot more money on food and water if they weren't doing things to them and directing me toward different places to eat and different water. How that works is, I can't drink water, but water for brushing my teeth, I can't use the water in my house, long story. The way that works is when I don't go to a place that they said I could go, most of the time, almost every time, I can't eat the food there. It causes me to be sick. The food itself fumes me. It causes my throat to be it messes up my throat, badly. It messes me up badly, right? It causes me actual physical symptoms. And I've had people around me, verify that in various ways. Just like with the fumes, I have several people on record as the witnesses to the stop, acknowledging that they've been fuming me. And once you've proven the fumes, right, and the fumes are very, I get fumed outside, I get fumed in the car, fumed in my room, I get fumed on my property, my parents' property. Once I've proven that, it's safe to say that only an idiot wouldn't believe that they're doing something to the food as well, because it's harder to fume me okay, than to do something to the food and to have some technology in the food when you think about it. Okay, thank you.